Now, into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this. Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean...
You were supposed to bring death to the flagships, not join them.
Google has found a new way to piss me off.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Behind-the-scenes camera crap.
May I present to you the cat?
I am the dog. I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing.
Welcome, listener, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I am your host tonight, Caleb, and I'm here with Landon.
Hello.
And Wes is not with us. Unfortunately, Wes had birthday stuff. He's celebrating one of his children's birthday.
I think he needs to get his priorities straightened out, man.
Yeah, how dare he be a good dad? Come on. Podcast. Tech. Gaming. Wes, come on.
Especially
Anyways.
during the time when there's not a lot of news. Come on, man.
Oh, yeah, ain't that the truth? It has a bit of a dry week this week, listener. That being said, I'm here this time, so you know darn well we can go for 2 hours if we need to. This is
Accurate.
my special skill.
Let's just start talking about Intel. Ready, go. No.
That's, you know what, actually, I will be talking about Intel
Yeah.
today, so... But we're not going to start off with Intel, listener. We're going to start with Apple. And the fact that a federal judge has ruled that Apple's deal with Google violates antitrust regulations. So, what specific deal with Google could they possibly be talking about? Why, it's the only deal with Google that Apple has that I'm aware of. It's the default search engine in Safari, which is a thing that Google has been paying Apple like $20 billion
$20 a year
for, at least for the past while.
At least in 2022, that's what it was.
Yes.
It might be more now.
It might be more now. Yep. So that's the thing. If you have any Apple devices, listener, and you use Safari for anything beyond just downloading Chrome, good job. I'm with you on that one. So Safari's default search engine, if you go into the bar at the top and type in a search, whatever, it's going to default you to Google. That's how it is on all their devices. You can go and change the default, but fresh out of the box, any iOS or Mac device is going to use Google for Safari. And that also, splashes over into Spotlight searches and so on and so forth. That all uses Google. This is a thing that Google has secured by giving Apple giant sums of money for years and years and years. And it is also a thing that Microsoft loves to whine about. They have been whining about it for years and years and years.
Yes.
Now, last time Apple was under antitrust investigation, this was brought to light. The specific numbers were brought to light. I guess we knew that Apple had deals with Google for a very long time. We didn't know that it was $20 billion a year, though. That's holy crap. So you know that Google gets a lot of business through Apple because of this. Otherwise, they would not be giving them that much money.
Yeah.
But Apple insisted that they would use Google anyways because, it's the best search engine, which fair, but that was before Google started putting AI search results into the search results. So it's a little bit debatable now whether or not that's still true.
Yeah.
Google has been making their search engine progressively worse over the past year. So, we'll see.
To be fair, if you just scroll over the AI stuff, it's still the same old Google search engine, but you just have to scroll down a little while to get there.
You just have to scroll down like past the first half page of results, pretty much. And then it gives you Wikipedia, which is what you were looking for to begin with. Honestly, they should just make Wikipedia the default search engine.
Yeah.
I feel like that would actually be awesome. Apple, can we just talk about something you could do for the good of human society as a whole, maybe? We'll add that to the stack. Anywho, this item, this particular issue has been thrown around in various court cases over the years, but we now have a specific piece of antitrust, judicialness happening. This ended up in courts, I believe, from the FTC, not necessarily like any particular plaintiff. I think this was the FTC just getting the courts to rule on this so that they would know whether or not they could leverage regulations against Apple and fines against Apple and so forth. And yes, a judge has ruled in federal court that this violates antitrust. That because Google has giant piles of money that they can give to people to ensure that they are the default search engine on pretty much every device that is sold to people, aside from Windows devices, so I suppose there is that.
Yeah.
That puts them in a position of unfair advantage to make sure that all search happens on their search engine, which means they continue to make giant piles of money, which means they continue to have giant piles of money to buy off all of the people that have default search engines available to them, and so on and so forth. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. That's what a monopoly is. So that is kind of where we landed with this ruling.
And to put this into a little more perspective, even though default search on Windows is obviously not Google and is Bing, Google just in July of 2024 put out some numbers, because that's when, these stock, or what are they called? I can't even think of what they're called. These calls, shareholder call, whatever.
Oh yeah.
Whatever those things.
Calls.
Yeah. They had their most recent shareholder call this in July, as did everyone else. But they boasted about having 91.02% of search engine market share. And that's ridiculous because, yes, Google is default on Safari on Apple devices, but Windows devices, like Windows has a much higher market share when it comes to computer usage than Apple does.
Oh, yeah.
But there's still 91% of search engine usage is Google. And Bing coming in at second, 3.88%.
Man. Yep.
Obviously, this is a massive, massive issue here for Google.
I think it's fair to say that under the classic definition of a monopoly, Google has a monopolistic hold over internet search.
Yes.
I don't think anybody's really going to argue with that. There were people that were trying to argue that Google paying Apple to be the default search engine on Mac and iOS wasn't a part of that monopolistic behavior. A federal judge disagrees. And as a person who uses DuckDuckGo as my default search engine, I'm kind of inclined to agree with him. I think that Google is in a position of being able to throw around that kind of money because they hold a monopoly. And the whole point of antitrust and the FTC is to get rid of those, break the monopolies down. So I do think that Google probably had this coming, and I would not be surprised to see something happen with this over the next couple of years after this particular item goes all the way to the Supreme Court, more than likely.
Yeah.
I suspect the fallout from this is that Apple is no longer going to be paid by anybody to have a default search engine for Safari, and that the first time you set up a new iOS or Mac device, it is, if you set it up brand new, right, you're not transferring over from another device, because if you transfer over, it's just going to keep all of your stuff the way that it was configured before. It's what it does on my iPhones. I set DuckDuckGo as my default search engine literally like a decade ago, and it just follows me, which is nice. But they'll probably have it set up that if you set up a new device, the first time you open Safari and you do a search in that bar at the top, it's probably going to pop up a thing that says, hey, which of this list of search engines would you like to use for this? You'll tap on one, it'll set that as the system default, and that's what it'll be going forward. In the near term, 90% of people, 99.9% of people, are just going to tap on Google because that's what they're familiar with, and they'll go from there. But, that is outside of the Apple court trying to break the fact that everybody is just familiar with Google. And that's the thing, is that even if Safari was defaulted to Bing, Bing would probably still only have like maybe a 15-20% market share.
Yeah.
Because most of the devices that people are using are Android. And if they're not Android, they're Windows, and that person has downloaded Chrome, and Chrome obviously is going to default to Google.
Yeah.
So, like, yes, iOS does have a pretty sizable market share. If you got all those iOS users searching on Bing, it would make a dent, but it would, Google would still have like 80+% of the market absolutely locked down. So it's one part of a much larger picture. But it is interesting to note that we now finally have got some actual courts making actual rulings related to how Google's search business, and particularly their deal with Apple that they have had, which there's probably other deals Google has with various other players,
I'm sure,
that mirror this, though not nearly to the extent of their deal with Apple. But this does seem to violate antitrust, which means that the government is not going to let these giant tech giants get away with this forever, in theory.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, while I agree that this is definitely a monopolistic practice that Google is doing here, and I'm fine with the ruling that this is what it is, the problem I see happening is this is neither Google or Apple are going to be okay with this for multiple reasons. Google will be okay, but not okay, because one, they won't have to pay Apple $20 billion anymore. But two, they won't be the quote unquote default search engine anymore. So they're going to be upset about that, but they're going to save a ton of money on one hand.
Yeah.
But Apple's not going to be happy about this because one, they're not getting that paycheck anymore.
Yep.
They're not going to like that. That will come to bite consumers in the butt down the road. And two, they also are going to hate the fact that it's going to make a worse experience for people setting up a new product on their device, or a new device, because it's just one more thing that someone has to be, has to pop up in front of you in order to choose. So it makes it more annoying. So,
yeah.
But at the same time, Apple has added a lot of those own pop-ups for themselves, but that's more on the privacy side of things.
There are a bunch more of those than there used to be. And I will note that generally speaking, iOS and Mac devices tend to handle that a little bit more gracefully than Android and Microsoft devices, in my experience. Because generally speaking, they're not going to ask you to set a default, to make a choice, until you get to the point where it's actually pertinent. With Windows, it would be like, hey, what default search engine do you want to have? And it's like, I just barely connected to Wi-Fi, my dude. I haven't even seen the desktop yet.
Yeah.
For the love of all that is holy, please stop throwing pop-ups in my face. Like that's kind of the setup experience on Windows. And Android is fairly similar, though if you've already set defaults on a different Android phone, it will tend to percolate those as soon as you sign in to your Google account. So depending on various things, it can be better, it can be worse. Also depending on who sold the phone, actually.
Yeah, that's also fair. If it's
does
Verizon,
change things
just don't
too.
buy it from Verizon. But I will say that Android has gotten a lot more similar to how iOS does it because of how iOS did it. They've just started doing it. Like the last time I was on an Android phone, when I downloaded new apps, it's like when I open that app and it has certain security issues, kind of like what iOS does, it was a similar experience. So they have fixed that in that, because it did used to be when you were setting up the device, pick this, and that was annoying. But they have gotten a little better in that. But Windows, they are awful.
Yeah. And honestly, Windows gets worse every time they update, I swear.
And they're annoying about updates too.
Oh yeah. No, it's not great. Windows, get your act together. Wes isn't here to defend you. So yeah, it's like, is it going to impact the user experience? A little bit. But like I said, it would honestly just be the first time you opened up Safari. It would just be like, hey, here's a list. It's got 5 options on it. Which one do you want to use? And, it'd be Google, it'd be Bing, there'd be DuckDuckGo, and you'd have, I don't know, a couple of other ones. There's a couple of other ones. It might even be region-based. There's certain regional search engines that do well in, like, Europe and so on. So, that's, I don't know. That's probably coming. I think that the most interesting thing that's going to happen with all of this is actually watching how the FTC tries to break up a monopoly like this.
Yeah.
Because you can't, like, it's not like back when AT&T owned all of the phone companies in the country.
Yeah.
And the FTC broke them into a whole bunch of smaller phone companies. And that's why you have, like, Pacific Bell and Western Bell and all of the different bells from, when you were a kid, listener. If you're old like we are, or older than us. If you're younger than us, then you have no idea what I'm talking about. You should go read about it on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Search on Google and then scroll down about halfway through the page and
find the Wikipedia link.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like that whole thing, that was fairly basic. It's like, we're just going to break it all up into different companies based on region. That makes sense. How do you do that with a search engine? Like, you can't just be like, okay, yeah, you got to split the search engine in half and you can only do searches for, like, west of the Mississippi and you can only do searches for east of the Mississippi. That's not how that works. And, like, who do you dictate, like, hey, you get the algorithm for all of the searches and you get, like, the Google brand, but you got to write a new algorithm from scratch?
Yeah.
Like, how do you break up these assets? It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, the closest thing we have to compare to is when they did something similar with Microsoft and Internet Explorer back in the day. And
that's true.
The only reason the Internet Explorer didn't, like, why people stopped choosing it is because Microsoft made it just so bad. Yeah. I don't think Google's going to do that. They've started, but I don't think it'll get as
sort of
bad.
Have started.
I mean, the fact that once your brand becomes the verb for the thing that it does, it's kind of hard to get away from. Like Kleenex, it's a tissue, but it's Kleenex. Like when you say, "Oh, I need to go Google that," we know you're going to go do a search on the web, even if you're using Bing or something else. The default saying Google. Is, "Go Google that." It doesn't matter what search engine you use.
Yeah. I don't know, though. It's going to be really interesting to see if they do get to the point of trying to break up Google's search engine business. I don't know how I guess what they could do is demand that Google split off a company that is just search. Like, the search engine, all of that business goes over here. And then you break off another company that is just advertising. They're allowed to make deals with the search business, but the search business also is going to be free to make deals with other advertisers and advertising platform providers. So, you've got to be competitive with them. And then you have the hardware, like Android, all that stuff, on a different pile. So, like, 3 different companies that are all free to make deals and work with each other, but they're also free to work with anybody else. And so, like, that way you kind of, like, you split the search off of the branch of people that are selling ads in the search, and you split, like, Chrome off of that so that it's, like, I guess you could divide it up that way and hope that that sort of equalizes the playing field for search engines. But, man, that would be a messy breakup. Like, so messy.
And the thing with that is, like, some of these companies, these little breakup companies, would probably go out of business because they're not being funded by Google.
But that's the thing is, like,
at least not entirely by Google.
Google gets all of their money from ads. If the advertising business splits off, then you're all like, well, yeah, now the hardware business and the search business are going to dry up.
Yeah, exactly.
But how do they sell ads if they don't have anything to sell ads on? Right? They're just a platform of advertising data now, but they need to have deals with the search people to get data in order to sell ads on the search people's platform. But now Apple could be like, hey, we want to put ads in your search results, and now they can sell ads for that or whatever, It's really, like, I can see how maybe it would work, but it's not like, yeah, okay, here's a, you have a telecom company for these 4 states or something like that, and that's a one company. Here's a different company that covers these different 4 states or whatever. And it's worth noting that after the FTC broke up AT&T in this way, AT&T just slowly went back and bought all of those companies again and became a giant nation-spanning conglomerate again.
Yeah.
And,
see, that's the thing is like the way the FTC has worked in the past 20 plus years, where it's like where worked? Google, where the way they've functioned in the last 20 plus years is where Google is an American company. They want to act like they're doing something about this, and then they will just not end up doing anything about it because they don't want to kill off a giant American company such as Google.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Apple. It's like they could probably find something Apple's doing in a
I'm sure.
Monopolistic.
Wow,
that's hard to say fast. But they could easily find something with both Apple, Google, Microsoft, all these companies, but they're tech giants in the U.S. They don't want to lose millions of jobs, or that would be not good.
Well, it's the jobs, it's the bragging rights, the clout, it's the access to data for people across the world that the U.S. government gets through Google, I'm sure, and stuff like that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, the FTC's job is to prevent monopolies like this from happening, but I feel like they're not super motivated to do that. And that can be pretty dang frustrating as a consumer at times. But that's okay, because the simple fact of the matter is, listener, that DuckDuckGo gives me Wikipedia just as fast as Google does. In fact, now I don't have to scroll past the first 20 results to get to the Wikipedia article anymore. Or I guess you never had to do that on DuckDuckGo, but now you do have to do that on Google. So there you go. That's the takeaway here is switch to DuckDuckGo. I don't know what I'm saying at this point anymore. Anyways, that's proof, listener, that when I'm around, we can go. We can talk. Okay. Let's move on to some Google news. Landon, tell us about Google making an iOS ad.
Yeah, so listener, you may have seen ads in the past couple years about Google basically not throwing Apple under the bus, but throwing a lot of shade towards Apple about the fact that iMessage didn't have RCS in the iPhone and all that stuff, Yeah. And they've been trying to make Apple do this, and it almost seems like Google thinks that they're responsible for the iPhone getting RCS in iOS 18, when in reality, it's more of the EU is going to force them to do it in the future anyways. So they just got ahead of that game instead of, waiting. Which, I mean, good for Apple for doing it before some government made them do it. I will give them a hand on that one. They should have done it 5 years ago, but at least they did it eventually on their own accord. But Google has made an ad. If you go to the Android YouTube page, you can find this, and it's basically showing all the new features that are going to be coming to iMessage because of RCS, which I will agree is a good thing. Like I said, I am fine with it, and I on iOS 18 that I'm using, it does work, and it works as advertised. It's great. It's just funny that Google made this ad basically praising iMessage in a way.
Yep.
And then at the end, it's like, if you want to learn more, go to android.com/RCS. I'm like, okay, nobody's going to do that.
Yeah, that's not going to work out for you. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, Google, you need to calm down a little bit. You didn't make this happen as much as you think you did.
Oh, no.
But, okay, whatever. Have your 10 seconds of happiness and go home.
There's a certain amount of irony in the fact that Google Voice still doesn't support RCS.
I mean, does Google Voice support anything?
I mean, it supports MMS, like text messages. That's it.
Yeah.
And then basic VoIP calls. Google Voice is one of those things that every time I remember it exists, I'm kind of surprised that it still exists.
Yeah.
Of all the things Google has killed off over the years, really? Google Voice is still around? Okay.
I mean, they can't really kill off a messaging app. They just make a new one.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, just add another. Oh my gosh, that is their MO. Wow.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Google, I'm glad that you're happy about iOS having RCS. You should add that to Google Voice. It sends encrypted text messages and has all of the same problems, many more problems, in fact, than texting between iOS and Android used to have. So you should fix that too, since you do have direct control over this. just saying. Anyways, let's move on. The Pixel 9. We have unfortunate rumors about the Pixel 9.
Oh, yes. So, listener, again, this is not a normal thing for me with talking rumors about phones, especially when it's only 2 weeks out from being announced. But I have to think that because Google pushed the announcement of these phones 2 months ahead of what they normally have done in the past is what's causing this thing to happen. So the rumor is that these Pixel 9 phones will launch with Android 14, not the latest version of Android 15 that will be coming out literally right after the launch of these phones, probably.
Huh.
And that is just, it seems really dumb. I mean, Android, the past few years, I want to say has launched the latest version in August. And that's why, to me, it did actually make some sense to launch the new phones then, because then you're on the same cadence as what Apple does, where they get a new phone, they get a new version of iOS. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But I guess based on some rumors that these phones, that's not going to be the case, because they're on the final beta of Android 15, I believe. So why Google?
That's weird. I mean, especially since as soon as Android 15 launches, it's hey, it's available on your Pixel phones. Okay, why didn't you just ship it a couple of weeks earlier?
Seriously. And because of this rumor, some people are also starting to question, okay, these phones are supposed to have 7 years of updates. Is that 7 OS updates? Does that include going from 14 to 15? Or is it going to actually get 8 OS updates to make it actually 7 years?
Oh.
Or, what's going to happen there? And that's a legitimate question because it's Google and we really never know what is going on.
You know what? I will bet that this is just that. I will bet that the engineers at Google and probably most of the management at Google is fully committed to 7 actual pants calendar years of updates.
Yeah.
Right? That's their goal. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to give the people. But this is some middle manager somewhere threw this idea out there. What if we just release the phones a couple of weeks before the latest version of Android, just in case we get to 7 years from now and it's just too much of a pain in the butt to get that version of Android to run on phones we're releasing this year, then we can just kind of be oh, no, you misunderstood us. We meant 7 OS updates, and the one that came out 2 weeks after the phone launched counted. And so that last year was actually the 7th, and we're good. Okay, we did it. We promised. I wouldn't be surprised if that's genuinely what has happened here. Is if they're we're just going to kind of cover our butts for 7 years in the future.
Yeah. There is some precedent to that, though, because I don't remember exactly which phone it was, but there was a phone that came out only a couple months before an Android launch. It was probably one of the A phones, I think is what it was. And it was promised a certain amount of years worth of updates, and it didn't get, it hit that year to the date, and then 2 months later, a new version of Android came out. It didn't get that version of Android. Now, there may have been some hardware issues, but It's just that, I mean, there is that precedent set by Google that could happen. It's like, well, we launched this, and then yes, it was only 2 weeks, but it was. I mean, we gave you 7 years of updates. You should be happy. No, Google,
yeah,
that's not how this works.
Oh yeah. I mean, to be fair, 7 years is pretty good. Like,
yes, I'm not going to complain
solid.
about that. And I mean, if somebody is using one of these, if one person has had that phone for 7 years, good job. Update it finally, please.
Yes.
Get a new phone.
Now is the time. Yeah. I don't know. It would be funny to me if that's what's going on here. I'm not necessarily upset or like annoyed with Google about it. It would be better if they didn't. And like I said, I suspect that the vast majority of the engineers, their intent is like, hey, no, we're going to push it as far as it can go. Which is a great, refreshing change in attitude for how Android is handled, because that's how iOS has been handled for years.
Yeah.
And I think that 7 years ties the longest update period that Apple has ever had. I think it ties it. It might beat it by a year. I'm not sure.
It's close. So,
they're definitely playing in that, in that kind of realm. And that's great. And that's an awesome attitude to have. And I'm happy that they have that attitude and whatnot. But that's corporation's going to corporate. And this could very well be what that is.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's sad, but funny. It's funny in a late stage capitalism kind of way.
Yep.
All right. Anything else to say about that?
No, I just really hope it doesn't actually happen that way.
That is fair. That's valid. All right. Going to move on to some general tech news, since we are not talking about Microsoft because Wes isn't here because he's being a good dad. It's more important. Nobody cares about what Microsoft is doing anyways. I guess they had some new laptops that launched with ARM chips in them, and people don't hate them, which is a huge plus versus their previous attempts.
Yes.
So,
I would say it's a big Copilot plus.
Hey, except for none of the Copilot features have actually launched.
Hey,
so
semantics. I mean, come on.
It also turns out that AMD's latest versions of mobile, like their mobile AI processors, which have the dumbest names ever. I'm not even going to utter them because my head will explode. But those apparently are also very good and actually may be better than the Snapdragon whatever ARM chips.
Wow.
With the possible exception, much better performance, not as good a battery life, but close enough that it's probably worth it to just get the AMD version. So, and apparently they have better neural processing chops than the Snapdragon chips, which was the argument for why all of the Copilot Plus PCs were the Snapdragon powered ones. Is, well, yeah, we need the NPUs on the Snapdragon processors because they're just better than everything else. And apparently AMDs are way better than that. And it's like, so why isn't this a Copilot Plus PC? Oops. Does it make a difference? No, it doesn't actually, because like I said, none of the Copilot Plus features have actually launched at this point, which is probably a good thing because there was one of them that was literally recording everything you did on your PC and probably sending it to the Chinese government for all we know. Anywho, that's Microsoft. They've been having an interesting few weeks. Yeah. You know who else has been having an interesting few weeks? Intel. And when I say few weeks, I mean actually more like a month. I'm not really going to editorialize any of this, listener. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what's been happening because Intel has just been having the worst time. So, a few weeks ago, about a month and a half ago, actually, two of the tech journalism world's most respected figures, Wendell from Level 1 Techs and Steve from Gamers Nexus, got together at, I think it was Computex, was it? So I guess that would put this into June. Maybe it was after Computex. I can't remember. But they got together, made a video together, talking about some of the research they'd been doing into the failure rates of 13th and 14th gen high-end Intel processors. So these are the most recent 2 versions of Intel processors, the highest end, most expensive top-tier ones, and how they had been failing at an abnormally high rate. Not necessarily just outright crapping out and not working at all, but developing increasing instability and stuff like that in ways that seemed like it was definitely related to their use, which would suggest that the CPUs were degrading over time, which would suggest that there's something seriously wrong with the processors themselves. Because, listener, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but processors, they're basically just made out of glass. Okay? Right? It's just a little piece of silicon. It's just glass that has electricity that flows through it, and magic happens when the electricity flows. And that's not the kind of thing that breaks down super easily, you know? And if you can keep a processor properly cooled, it will last for decades, like literal decades of heavy use, just so long as you keep it from getting too hot and you keep it from getting too much electricity. So the fact that these Intel chips were failing would indicate that they were either getting too hot, which, not necessarily surprising, 13th, 14th gen Intel chips were keeping up with AMD by basically just throwing the laws of thermodynamics in the trash and going for broke. But also suggesting that they might be getting too much electricity. Like, is that the problem? So they were just musing on this and kind of suggesting this and calling Intel out, saying, hey, you need to address this. You need to say something about this. Intel didn't say anything for a while. A whole bunch of other people came forward after that video, including game developers who have to support players whose computers are crapping out while playing the games. And they have a whole bunch of data that they pull off of the systems for their game. And a whole lot of data that suggested that, yes, in fact, 13th and 14th generation Intel processors had way more instability than anything else, which was interesting because they weren't limiting it to just the high-end chips. It was everything. And Intel finally did say something, insisting that there was an issue with with BIOS configurations on desktop platforms that was making it so that the processors were in fact getting more voltage than they should have been getting, and that was causing the early failures, and they were trying to throw it onto the motherboard manufacturers, and the motherboard manufacturers are like, hold on, we implemented your spec exactly the way you said to implement your spec. Like, what the heck? And then they said, like, oh wait, we did find a problem in the microcode, which is the code that Intel writes that on the most basic level tells the processor how to manage its inputs and outputs. And that the microcode itself had some issues that would cause instability, but that was specifically on laptops, not their desktop platforms. And they'd already patched that, and it wouldn't be a problem going forward. And everybody was all like, well, hold on, we're not seeing the instability on the laptop chips. This is the desktop chips we're talking about here. This is the 13th, 14th, 100KF and whatnot. Like, the high-end desktop chips is what we're seeing this on. And then Intel finally did release a statement saying that they had discovered a different microcode issue for 13th and 14th gen processors that was affecting the desktop chips, that was, in fact, causing too much current to hit the chips under certain circumstances. Usually in demanding tasks like playing video games or something like that. And that because of this microcode error, chips had degraded. This is a situation where it's not like, oh no, we have some weird instabilities with the code that we can fix. It was, oh no, we had some weird instabilities with the code that caused too much voltage to flow through the processor. And when you have too much voltage flowing through the processor, the glass breaks down. You had certain pathways, certain gates that were fused, that were locked, that were broken. Meaning that you were going to see random instability on the processor, and it's going to slow down quite a bit while it tries to work around it. And that is an actual pants hardware problem.
Yeah.
So if you have a 13th or 14th gen Intel chip, and you have noticed like increases in blue screens or crashes or whatever, odds are pretty good that you had this microcode issue and that it did get to the point where you have suffered physical damage to your processor. It can't be fixed via code. Your processor is just broken now. It is now worse than it was when you bought it, which is so random and so unusual for the world of processors that people were just like, whoa, this is nuts. Yeah. To Intel's credit, if you have an affected processor, get in contact with their support department. They should issue you a replacement. And the microcode has been fixed, so if you get a BIOS update on your motherboard and put in a replacement CPU, it should be fine. It should not break down over time the way that the last one did. Now, it is worth noting that apparently some people have been having issues with this refund process through Intel support because Intel support was trying to, what was it? They were trying to like blame the instability on specific pieces of software that like lots of people have installed on their computers or something like that.
Windows.
So yeah, it's not our fault. It's Microsoft. It's CrowdStrike.
Hey, it almost
all over
worked
again.
for CrowdStrike.
So yeah, so your mileage may vary in terms of actually getting some kind of a refund to go through, but Intel has acknowledged the problem. They are going to work toward replacing all this stuff. This lands all at about the same time as Intel announcing or speculation, well, not really announcing, but internally to the company, Intel having discussions about how their next, their version, 2 years from now, I think, on their roadmap, their desktop processors for that time, they're actually looking at outsourcing the fabrication of those processors to somebody like TSMC because Intel's own fabs are technologically not capable of doing what they want to do with them and stuff like that, which caused Intel's stock prices to plummet on top of everything else. And Intel is looking at potentially quite a lot of money to fix all of the broken processors that they have sold sold and then broke over the past few years. So it's been just not a great time for Intel. They're not having fun. Just straight up not having a good time. So there you go. Now you're all caught up.
Which is really too bad because for the last little while before all this, they were looking better. Like their processors were getting better. They were showing that they were actually, starting to compete again with the market.
Yep.
And then this,
now this.
I can't feel too bad for Intel, but because they were starting to show progress, it is unfortunate, but
yeah. What I will say is that if you had grabbed 10 years ago me and been like, hey, you need to dump all of your money into AMD stock because 10 years from now, Intel is going to be crapping the bed over and over and over again, and AMD is just going to keep getting better and better and better to the point where it's looking like Intel might be headed out of business and AMD is looking to take over entirely. I would have laughed in your face and probably slapped you just for fun. I don't know. It's because that was crazy because at the time, AMD's best product were graphics cards, and even then they only competed with NVIDIA's graphics on like the mid-end or the mid-range stuff. They had very little to compete at the high end, and their processors were running on an architecture that was like 15 years old, and they were just straight up hot garbage. Like they were so bad. They were unstable. They were unreliable. They had virtually no support in the software world. It was AMD that had the unstable and completely unusable processors a decade ago. And now it's like, oh, wow, you want your desktop computer that you're building to be stable? Better go AMD. Can't trust Intel. Yeah. Jeez. What the heck, man? It's been a wild, wild ride up to this point. It doesn't appear to be slowing down anytime soon. So there you go. Intel. Now, moving on to the next item of general tech news, we have the Venu Sports streaming app.
Yes. All right. So a few months ago, I believe it was announced that this was coming. I don't know if we had a name for it back then, but there was an idea thrown out, at least by Disney, Fox, and Warner Brothers, that they were going to basically combine forces and make one giant sports streaming app. And now it's been announced what it is, what it'll include, and a price. So the name obviously is Venu Sports. That is the new streaming app. The cost is $42.99 a month, which is quite a bit of money, but what you get out of it isn't, I still don't know if it's fully worth $42.99 a month. I don't think I'll be paying for it because, I have YouTube TV and I get most of these channels. So what you get out of it, all these different services are pretty much everything from Disney, which includes ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, the SEC network, the ACC network, ESPN News, ABC, and then other stuff you get is ABC, or no, I said ABC. You get Fox, FS1, FS2, BTN, TNT, TBS, and True TV. And then on top of that, you also get ESPN Plus. So there's quite a bit of stuff. And then what they say when it comes to different sports that are covered and different brands, they have NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, WNBA, NCAA Division I football and basketball, U.S. and international soccer, combat sports, Grand Slam tennis, championship golf, IndyCar, NASCAR, and F1 auto racing. So, that makes sense because all of those sports and stuff are on all those channels. The thing that I thought was interesting, though, is with NFL, it's like, okay, yes, you get NFL, but that's like Monday Night Football. That's all that's on ESPN. So you're not like NFL has deals with Fox. Yes, Fox is included here. So if the game is on Fox, you're good to go. But when it comes to regular Sunday football, it's also NBC, CBS, and Fox. Those are the three brands that have NFL covered other than Mondays. So you're not getting all the NFL. You're just getting what's on Fox and what's on Monday Night Football, which is basically what you had before.
Yeah.
So, it is nice that you can get all of this stuff in one local area. So if you don't already have that, here you go. $43 a month. You get all this stuff. That's fine. But like me, I have YouTube TV that includes all of these channels. I don't have ESPN Plus included with my YouTube TV, but that's fine. I'm not really missing out on a whole lot by not having ESPN Plus. Although, if you have Disney Plus, you might already have ESPN Plus. So, there's that. They are offering package deals that if you have Disney Plus, you can add this on, or same with, they had Disney Plus, Hulu, or Max, which, Disney Plus and Hulu are already combined into one thing. So if you're paying for those separately, what are you doing?
Don't.
But if you have Max and nothing else, then, okay, maybe this makes a little more sense. But it's interesting. Like if you're only paying for your TV because of sports channels, maybe this makes sense because it will be a little bit cheaper. Like if you're paying for DirecTV or Dish Network or Comcast or some of those just for sports, then okay, quit that. Just get an antenna for your local stations and then watch sports this way. Or if you're only paying for YouTube TV because you want sports, I don't know why you're doing that, but if you are, there you go. But I think most people are paying for these other TV things because of other TV channels, not just sports. The benefit is there with sports.
Sure. What's wild to me is that, Comcast, for instance, I hate them. Mm-hmm. But if you are paying for internet through Comcast, you could probably add a TV package that will include basically all of this for about the same price per month.
Yeah.
And I suspect that a lot of people, and that's going to include a heck of a lot more than just sports. So it's like they're struggling towards, the end goal, which is basically just recreating the cable packages that we were struggling to get away from, 10 years ago with all the cord cutting stuff that was happening. And except it'll be streaming over the internet now instead of over Comcast's cable network, which I guess is a tiny bit better because it takes the TV provider and separates them from the network that actually provides the content to your house. So you have more options to choose from. I guess that's better, but that's really the only difference at this point.
Yeah.
Oh man, good old cable can't kill really anything. Interesting.
I mean, one of the reasons that we did get YouTube TV is because of all the sports channels it offered, but that wasn't the only reason we got YouTube TV. That was just an added benefit. It was cheaper than paying for, at the time I think we had DirecTV. It was cheaper to get YouTube TV and the channels that it had with more sports channels than what we were paying for on DirecTV to get the same sports channels. So that's why we have it. It's probably why a lot of people have YouTube TV. And I mean, the experience on YouTube TV is also just really, really good in general. But if you don't already have any cable subscription, you don't have YouTube TV, and you have an antenna hooked up and you're not really paying for much streaming in general, if you want more sports, then okay, maybe this is for you. But it's a very niche audience for this, I think.
Now, like I said, they're just going to continue to take these options, these streaming options, and then pack them together into bigger and bigger packages that cost more and more money so that you can just pay one subscription. You'll get everything, but it's all like, but now I'm paying $80 a month and I may as well just have cable.
Pretty much.
Except it'll include all the Disney Plus exclusive shows and it'll include all the Max exclusive shows and you'll be able to watch everything. It's like, awesome. I only want to watch like maybe 5% of everything that's in here. Why can't I just pay for the 5%? And then we'll go through the whole cord cutting process again. Like, what? It's like the T1000. It just keeps coming back together. Okay. Well, that's great. I love it. Cable is awesome. All hail our cable overlords.
They don't have a official launch date yet. They did say it's coming sometime of fall of 2024, which if they don't get this out before football season, that's kind of a bad thing. Like if they don't get it out, I understand if they don't get it out before preseason of NFL, that's fine. Nobody really cares about preseason games other than fantasy people. Which, I mean, they are nuts enough to pay for this, I guess. So,
It probably is. They're the ones who would pay for it.
But the other people that are really going to be wanting something like this are the college football nuts, which I am one. But I've already listened or listed why I'm not going to be getting this. So if they don't get it out before football season starts, that's kind of dead on arrival. Opportunity.
At least for this year.
Yeah.
Well, I will say they've pretty much missed all of Drum Corps season, so I'm not even interested at this point.
Because that's on television.
Hey,
I missed the days when it was on ESPN. They have a streaming
service. Yeah, they used to stream finals, though they had like neutered versions of the shows on ESPN. They would be like, they'd cut out like the middle 3 minutes of the show or something. Yeah. It's like, what? Do people not have the attention span to watch the whole thing? Good grief. But no, that's okay. Flow Sports has that, and I actually just today signed up for my $30 a month subscription for the month of August to have Flow Sports for 1 month to watch DCI finals and then cancel it.
Yes.
Every year. It's my yearly routine. It's good times. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to some gaming news. Listener, I promise we are approaching the end. So this past couple of weeks in gaming news, Gran Turismo 7, they released a patch for Gran Turismo 7 that utterly destroyed the physics of the game. It was amazing. Like, it is, you want to talk about patches that break things. Sure, we had a patch that broke the internet, and Intel apparently had a software bug that was literally killing processors. But Gran Turismo 7 had a bug that was launching cars into the stratosphere. It was amazing. And if you haven't patched the game since like a couple of weeks ago, I do believe they have released a fix for this now, but you could still have this and you could definitely go mess around with it. It was screwing with the game's physics in a way that was really messing with cars that had a lot of suspension travel, right? So cars that didn't have a ton of suspension travel weren't nearly as affected by this. There were still some effects, but it was just kind of like, whoa, why are things slightly weird, as opposed to, whoa, why are all of the cars flying 30,000 feet through the air and stuff like that? Like,
it's new airplane mode.
Basically. Like, an F1 car doesn't have a ton of suspension travel, but like a Volkswagen bus, for instance, does, like, quite a lot. And for some reason, you know, the cars would spawn in for the race onto the track, the suspension would settle, and then any bumps would perturb the physics of the model in such a way that they just catapult into space. It was amazing. They would fly like all over the place, get like fully airborne, take off like a rocket. You can go onto YouTube and look for just Gran Turismo 7 bug and watch people that did compilations of like races where it was just like, you know, 14 Volkswagen minibuses trying to race each other. And every time they move, they're just like bouncing off in some random direction. Really funny to watch. I highly recommend it. So there you go. That's the gaming news I had for you this week, listener. It's super important and definitely couldn't have been, you know, other important gaming things that we could talk about, but no, just this. That's it. All right. So, listener, that does bring us to the end of the podcast, unless Landon has one more thing.
Yes, I do.
It happened.
Well, this is only one more thing because I forgot to put it in the show notes earlier in the podcast, so we skipped it. That's my bad.
It's not my fault. It's not written down.
Yes, this was definitely my mistake. All right, so my one more thing is actually an Apple one more thing, too.
Oh, goodness.
iOS 18 Beta 2 has come out in the last week or so, and I just wanted to give a little bit of an update on the update. So I had mentioned previously that the new dark mode icons that were there, I didn't love all that much.
Yeah.
But this new update has fixed that issue, kind of.
Oh.
Like, you can still choose to have these dark mode icons, but you can also choose to have the light icons in dark mode. Like, they basically did what I was asking, which is, thank you, Apple. Thank you, Tim, for listening.
Oh, there you go.
And like, you can also, so you can choose light or dark widgets in light or dark mode. And same with the icons. You can choose light or dark, and you can do those separately too. So you can have light mode icons with dark mode widgets in dark mode or light mode, or vice, like any combination of that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I actually really like that. That is one customization feature that is very nice. Thank you, Apple. That is cool. The other issues, the bugs that I personally had, again, weren't really major bugs, but for me, they were issues. The screen time that appeared to not be working is now fixed. And I only noticed this because I scrolled over to my screen time widget that I have on the very left page of, it's not really a page of, it's just a page of widgets, you know. It's there, and it actually started showing things. I'm like, or no, what did it, I can't remember what it said. Basically set it up more or less.
Right.
Whereas before it just was showing 0 time and then wouldn't let me set anything up. This time it actually gave me the option to turn it on and stuff. So that's nice. That is fixed. The other one that I had was I couldn't get my workout stats on my screen of my phone while I was riding my bike. I did go on a bike ride this past week, and that has also been fixed. So,
all right.
2 things that I was worried about, well, pretty much all the things I was worried about have been fixed. Thank you, Apple. Obviously, you're listening to the podcast, and we appreciate it.
Yeah. No, that's great. Tim, it's great to have you as a supporter of the podcast. Really.
Now just join our Patreon.
Really appreciate it. Hey, yeah. If you want to toss some of that personal fortune over our direction, we would not complain.
Yeah. But that's my one more thing. Just little updates to iOS 18 Beta 2. I haven't found any other issues yet, so that's good. It's getting better.
That is good. Good. All right, then, listener. I believe that does, in fact, bring us to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We appreciate you being here. If you would like to get in contact with us, you can email us at podcast@callingallplatforms.com. You can also get in touch with us on various social medias at CapTechPod on Twitter, which is still Twitter. I'm never going to call it anything else. I don't care what anybody says. You can also find us at Calling All Platforms on Facebook and Calling All Platforms Gaming or Tech on YouTube. And, of course, we also have a website, callingallplatforms.com. You can get in touch with us there as well. And you can also find us right back here in the podcasting app of your choice next week. So until then, listener, bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.